Elizabeth, you're welcome to go on a rant about US Department of Agriculture. I find it amusing actually because I know virtually nothing about that. Like other than Monsanto related
Yeah.
stuff, like that's about it.
Yeah, well, okay. So anybody who's watched a few, documentaries about um animal agriculture, and there are plenty of them on Netflix. I mean, this is just a personal, you know, topic that I'm interested in, but there's a whole lot of issues with the meat and dairy industries misrepresenting how much their industry costs as far as water. So, we have recently there was the drought in California, and there have been all these issues of global warming and or climate change and the destruction that goes along with that. But you never hear about how much it takes to put together enough grain or enough corn or GMO soy, whatever, to feed these cows, and the water, and then all the pesticides poisoning the land to then just create like 1 pound of meat. And so apparently, from what I'm aware of, just there's a huge amount of money and power that is behind keeping that type of information away from the public, so that people feel like that meat and dairy are healthy and required in their diet. And on another level as well, it's there's from what I've heard, there's a lot of disinformation as far as the way that salmonella and some E. coli outbreaks are presented, because what they'll do is they'll highlight in the media or the news, they'll say, oh my God, E. coli contamination in salad, like in spinach greens or something, but they won't talk about the times that it happens in meat. And the problem is that the reason that spinach is being contaminated is from animal, contamination. So the idea is that meat and dairy are presented as more safe even than vegetable products or whatever. So it's just a huge topic. And so it doesn't surprise me, knowing, like, just coming from that background of researching that area a little bit, it does not surprise me at all that the USDA would be interacting with the NSA, because it's like, the way that Susie talks about the intelligence agencies as being a mafia, and we think of, big pharma as being, or other industry, lots of different varieties of industries all the time, as kind of having this, unhealthy interaction with our government and our representation, and even the intelligence agencies. This is another sector of the corporate space that is unhealthily interacting with our government space that's supposed to be working for us and not for them. And it's surprising, but it seems to be pretty like the amount of support that they require to keep up their narrative and to drive the lines that they want to drive for their profit are I guess pretty difficult to maintain, because they definitely seem to lean heavily on government and on, I guess, the NSA as well. And I mean, obviously it sounded like from the document that we read that the way in which they were interacting with the NSA seemed to me to sound more like they were trying to get ahead of deals more than like let's hide so-and-so line from the public. I don't think that's what we were looking at in that document. The document sounded like it was trying to get ahead of other countries and get the most profit they could. And yeah. So my personal problem with that whole industry as well is not just in America that, you have the huge amounts of pesticides and whatever that are being thrown on, like the GMO soy that is then fed to the animals that we then eat. It's also the fact that at least deforestation in South America and other places that they're clearing, rainforest in order to graze cattle. There's a huge amount of deforestation that goes along with that. So like the different there, basically what animal agriculture has is a whole lot of tentacles that go out into different aspects of pollution or climate change destroying the planet. So when people talk about climate change in animals, they think usually of like, cows burping or sheep burping or whatever. That's absolutely not where the harm ends there. It's multifaceted, and it's in a lot of different ways, not just directly with the animal itself, but in what goes into keeping that animal fed. Yeah, so I could go on a long rant for this for a long time, but I'm just going to check chat real quick and see what you guys are saying.
That was beautifully put, I thought.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I don't know. I guess because I've been interested in this topic, I'm not really quite sure how much background everyone else has on that. But I mean, if you've watched like Cowspiracy and some of these other documentaries that have been out for a while, I mean, it goes into that really in depth. And it also, like, those documentaries also show kind of the pushback they get from government bodies and industry heads of industry as far as hiding the truth about the effect of animal products and the environmental effects and all that sort of thing. And actually, and I was it Cowspiracy? It was one of those documentaries that are widely available. It also goes into the fact that the harmful effects of these industries is stratified. So if you're in a poor area or a minority area, you're much more likely to have a hog farm. It's similar to the Dakota Access Pipeline, which was going through Native American areas because it was rerouted to avoid the white area. And so similarly, you know, these hog farms, chicken farms, all of these things are going to be placed in areas that are poorer or minority areas. And it's just really like there's all sorts of issues that stem from animal agriculture that, you know, and obviously, yeah, it's just not all with the methane that the cows make or something. Yeah, and so basically what happens is people have the basic idea that the government is there to protect you. So like the USDA or the FDA or whatever, that they are just like the politicians are supposed to be voted in and then represent the people the same way, you know, these government bodies regarding agriculture are meant to protect the public at large. And instead, at the way that things have developed in this country is that they are affected by corporations, and that's something that is, you know, validated in that in the Princeton study from 2014 that said that business interests have much more power than the public does with their vote in affecting policy that's enacted. So the same thing happens in all sorts of different industries across the board. But I just think that people generally aren't aware maybe of how important the agriculture industry is, and that it acts in a similar way to the big pharma or military industry, you know, like, you know, arms companies and that type of thing. It's not just, you know, I don't think that it ends just with looking for better trade, you know, a lot more interesting than that. So it's a topic that interests me.